So I married a film critic.
Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic. I'm your co-host Julia.
And this is Barry the Film Critic. Hello, everyone.
And we decided to go back to 1987 and rewatch The Princess Bride.
Perhaps you've heard of this one. This is a very, very popular movie. Came out in 1987, directed by Rob Reiner. And this is a film that, I mean, this is the year, one of the top grossing films of the year was Beverly Hills Cop 2. I've never met anyone in my life who's crazy about Beverly Hills Cop 2, but I meet people all the time who tell me The Princess Bride is their favorite movie. They quote it incessantly. This film is indestructible.
Yeah, I feel like everyone knows at least one or two quotes from this movie.
If not the entire film.
Yeah, and you're not a movie quote guy, but...
No, I'm not.
And I think this is a reason is because you know all the lines before they come, and then you're just like, oh, there it is again, and you're not excited about it.
It's that, and it's also because, you know, movies, they have these things called actors, and they give such stirring line readings, which is not the same as, you know, being on a subway and someone goes, inconceivable, and everyone goes, yeah, right on, man, The Princess Bride, yeah.
Okay, so prepare yourself for all of our terrible impressions.
I thought that was really good. That was a spot-on Wallace Shawn. You kidding?
Okay, so this movie opens up with Fred Savage as a little boy. He's sick. He's home from school, and his grandfather, played by Peter Falk, has come over to read to him.
When I was your age, television was called books, and this is a special book. It was the book my father used to read to me when I was sick, and I used to read it to your father. And today, I'm going to read it to you.
Has it got any sports in it?
Are you kidding? Fencing, fighting, torture, revenge, giants, monsters, chases, escapes, true love, miracles.
Doesn't sound too bad. I'll try and stay awake.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Very nice of you. Your vote of confidence is overwhelming. All right. The Princess Bride. By S. Morgenstern, Chapter 1. Buttercup was raised on a small farm in the country of Florin. Her favorite pastimes were riding her horse and tormenting the farm boy that worked there. His name was Wesley, but she never called him that. Isn't that a wonderful beginning?
Yeah, it's really good.
So that's the opening of this movie. Now, you say you love this part of the film.
Well, I mean, this was right around the time Fred Savage... I mean, this is like around... I think it's the same year that he had the TV show The Wonder Years. So Savage was my guy. The Wonder Years, even though the movie, the series, the TV show took place in the 60s, I saw a lot of myself in Kevin Arnold, the character he played. And Savage had done a movie the year before this called The Boy Who Could Fly. I just really loved him. He was like, of all the childhood actors, he was the one I thought I relate to him. I felt a real kinship. So I was thrilled that he's in the opening scene, and that this movie, despite the fact that it had a title, The Princess Bride, which is not something that really excited me when I was 9. The first scene, it's like the equivalent of my bedroom in the 80s, and there's Fred Savage, and it's Peter Falk, Columbo. Yeah, I was totally down.
So I didn't mind. I don't mind the opening of this movie starting this way, but going back and forth between the story and the grandpa and the grandson, I don't know. I like it less now. It just feels like it's distracting from the movie.
Oh man. I mean, as a kid, I'm just like, please go back to Fred Savage and Peter Falk, please.
All right. So we open with The Princess Bride and the title card, and there's Buttercup, and who is Buttercup? Okay, this is where I'm just gonna start off by saying the title of this movie makes no sense. The Princess Bride? She's not a princess. She's a commoner. She'd be called the Commoner Bride. Why?
That would have really brought it in the box office.
I know, but it doesn't.
Rob
does
Reiner's
it make sense?
The Commoner Bride.
But why? Why is she? Who is she?
It's a fairy tale title.
No, I know, but
it's like the Ice Princess.
Who is Buttercup?
She's the prince's
Oh
bride.
my gosh. Okay, so she's just like some random.
Can I also say, like, the title has always confused me. I've never cared enough to really think about it, but as I got older, I'm like, is it the princess? Like, it's his like princess, like with little,
No.
like it's his bride, but
No,
it's not. It's not written that way.
No,
So I've always been.
that's why it doesn't make sense.
I'm with you. I've never really understood why it's called that either.
Okay.
And let me say really quickly. I mean, it's the screenplay is by William Goldman. It's based on his 1973 book, and the title, the full title, I've got it right here. It was called the original title. I never finished it. I never thought it was that great a book, even though I love Goldman. But the book was called The Princess Bride: S. Morgenstern's classic tale of true love and high adventure, the good parts version. So that is the full title of the original book from 1973 by William Goldman.
Wow, talk about a mouthful.
Goldman's the man. I mean, this is the guy who wrote Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He also wrote the novel, which became the movie Magic, which is one of my all-time personal favorites. I mean, he's kind of a god among screenwriters. He's written most movies. He actually adapted Misery a couple years later for Rob Reiner. I love Goldman. But this is one of the most beloved things, other than Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. This is one of the most beloved things he's ever done. The book was beloved, and this movie, I mean, it's a juggernaut. I mean, we'll get into that, but let's talk more about the plot. You're right.
Okay, so Buttercup, and I guess she's the only one who lives on this farm. I don't know where her family is. And then her farm boy, Wesley, who she calls Farm Boy.
Right.
And how is he falling in love with her when she's just so rude to him all the time?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But that's the thing. Why does she have a farm boy?
You're asking great questions,
Who is
Julia.
this person?
Yeah. No, I appreciate you asking these questions because, not to bury the lead too much, but you're a much bigger fan of this movie than I am. And one of the reasons is exactly what you're talking about. Carrie Elways is giving a very stylish performance, and Robin Wright is lovely. But yeah, who are these people? I've never really cared one way or the other in terms of them as characters. As actors, I think they're very, very charismatic. No question. They do have chemistry. Absolutely. You love them by default, but I mean, there's no character here. There's strictly an arc. There's strictly a type. You know, it's strictly the maiden and the prince, if you will.
Yeah, so he has to leave. I wasn't clear exactly why, but she gets word that he has been killed by the dread pirate Roberts, and to quote Buttercup, "I will never love again." So, what,
Yeah.
she's just going to die an old maid on this farm? I guess.
There's a lot of proclamations in this one. I mean, later on, Wesley says, "Death cannot stop true love." No, of course it can. That's ridiculous. That's a childish thing to say. But whatever, it's a fairy tale. It's fine.
Yeah, so I don't know. She must have lived on this farm for a few more years, and then
I love that you're like struggling for a backstory. There's no backstory. There's no character.
I know. I am struggling because Prince Humperdinck, just all of a sudden you meet this prince of this land, and now he's gonna marry Buttercup. Like,
She's clearly. I mean, she's like Snow White. She's the fairest in the land.
okay, but he says,
I mean, it's either her or Miracle Max's wife. So he had to pick and choose here.
"I'm not a witch. I'm your wife." Okay, so but he says, "A commoner like you, but you won't find her so common." So it's like, okay, so she's not a princess. Again, title makes no sense. Okay, moving on. So, all right, so she gets kidnapped
Yes.
by the Three Stooges. No, by Vizzini.
Well, that's not too far off. Yeah, Vizzini, played by the wonderful Wallace Shawn. Fezzik, played by the late, great Andre the Giant.
and Inigo.
And Inigo Montoya, played by Mandy Patinkin.
Yeah. So she gets kidnapped by them, and I don't know. They take her on this boat, and then this is where I think it gets funny.
Well, it works. I mean, like, I think what I told you the other night when we watched it, I think that the thing that jumps out at me, especially now, is Wallace Shawn's performance is on a very different level from the rest of the film. And the movie is a real contrast of acting styles. Wallace Shawn versus Andre the Giant. I mean, it's all over the place in terms of with the kind of actors that we're talking about here. But I mean, Shawn is a brilliant actor. This is one of the stars of My Dinner with Andre, Andre the Giant. And His scenes with Andre the Giant are so funny because, to put it mildly, I mean, anybody next to Andre the Giant is tiny, but Wallace Shawn is a mouse compared to Andre the Giant. And it's so funny to see this little guy, bossing around this
7 foot tall man.
This wonderful oak tree of a human being. Yeah, their scenes together are so funny.
What's that you're ripping?
It's fabric from the uniform of an army officer of Gilder.
Who is Gilder?
The country across the sea, the sworn enemy of Florin. Go! Once the horse reaches the castle, the fabric will make the prince suspect the Gilderians have abducted his love. When he finds their body dead on the Gilder frontier, his suspicions will be totally confirmed.
You never say anything about killing anyone.
I've hired you to help me start a war. It's a prestigious line of work with a long and glorious tradition.
I just don't think it's right, killing an innocent girl.
Am I going mad? Or did the word think escape your lips? You were not hired for your brains, you hippopotamic landmass.
I agree with Physic.
Oh, the sot has spoken. What happens to her is not truly your concern. I will kill her. And remember this. Never forget this. When I found you, you were so slobbering drunk you couldn't buy brandy. And you, friendless, brainless, helpless, hopeless. Do you want me to send you back to where you were? Unemployed in Greenland?
Okay, so they're all on the boat together. And then we kind of get the funny, repartee between the three, but the rhyming, stop it, I mean it. Anybody want a peanut? Stuff like that. Just silly. Just so silly. And then Inigo notices that there's another ship following them. All right, so they finally get to the cliffs. Oh no, I almost forgot. This is crazy. The eel infested waters. Okay.
Yes.
The shrieking eels. This scene scared me so bad when I was a kid. Like, so bad. When she jumps in the water and then these eels just start like circling her, and then you see one with its mouth open. I mean, I have been afraid of eels my whole life because of this film.
Wow, that's fascinating. I had no idea.
Yeah. So when people are like, when we go down to the beach and like we go to
It's like, is that an eel? And you just...
No, but we're at not in the water, but it's like the
coral reef?
Yeah, the reefs. And someone says like, "Oh, I think I saw an eel." I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't."
Are they the shrieking eels?
Yeah, exactly. I can't.
Wow, that's fascinating. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
It really scared me because they look so real. Now I saw the making of, and they are animatronic eels, but still, they were still scary as a kid.
Wow, man. So this was like a horror film for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a lot of parts in this movie.
We had very different childhoods.
Very much freaked me out.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Fezzik saves her and pulls her out of the water. And the next day, I don't know, they get to the cliffs of insanity. And conveniently, there's a rope hanging down. And this thing that they, like, this apparatus that they put on Andre the Giant so that they all, like, hang on him is so crazy.
Yeah.
And he's just like pulling him up like it's no big deal.
It's magical. He's got the strength of 10 men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we see that the masked man is following them, and of course it's inconceivable that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the funny part is Vizzini says that he's not going fast enough, and he's like, "Well, I'm carrying 3 of you," and he's like, "I'm gonna find a new giant."
That's great.
So I just thought it was funny. Like, how many giants are there in this not invisible land?
Yeah, sadly, Andre the Giant was only with us a little while after this movie came out. And this was the year of WrestleMania 3. I think there'll maybe be a couple of nerds listening to this who perk up the way I always do when I think about WrestleMania 3. That's one of the greatest sporting events of all time. That was the title match was Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. And that match climaxed where Hulk Hogan lifted Andre the Giant up over his head and slammed him down.
That's
it's
crazy.
amazing, Jules. Yeah, it's one of the, like, people like, wrestling is fake. You know what? Watch the title match of WrestleMania 3. Tell me how fake it looks, because it is awesome. And Giant, like Andre the Giant, he was, it's WrestleMania, so it's like, it's WWF, so it was, Andre the Giant was the bad guy, Hulk Hogan was the good guy. But
did he like jump up and then Hulk Hogan lift him up like Dirty Dancing style?
No.
Oh no, he
No.
like
Hulk,
deadlifted him.
It's amazing, yeah, because like he, I love that we're talking about this. Like the Giant has him from behind, a stranglehold, and Hulk Hogan is like giving the performance of his life, but he like slow. I mean, it's slow. He like gets his hand under his torso, and next thing you know, he's lifting him up, and it's like, wow, Hulk Hogan, you had your Wheaties that morning. That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great. 87, great year.
I think I should watch that.
You really should.
All right, so the guys get to the top, and Inigo is supposed to fight him. Duel to the death.
And what does he say before he fights him? Whoever he fights.
He says he's gonna fight him with his left hand.
No, his line. What's his line?
No, that's not. He doesn't say that to him.
He doesn't say it yet?
No,
Okay.
not yet. He doesn't until he meets him. So then, okay, so we finally see the masked man, and it's pretty obvious that it's Wesley. I mean, do we know this for sure?
Yes. It's
Okay.
definitely Carrie Always.
No, but
it's not like, is it Clark Kent or is it Superman? No, it's even more obvious than that. It's a piece of black cloth over his eyes. It's clearly Carrie Always.
well, what I like,
He has a mustache. That's the only difference between when he was the stable boy.
But what I like about these like quote unquote bad guys that have kidnapped Buttercup is that they're actually like really nice, and you can tell they don't really want to kill him, but it's like their job now. So he tells him about the six-fingered man, and that's when he tells him,
I will go up to the six-fingered man and say, hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
all right, well, so they fight. Do you like this sword fighting?
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Patinkin and Carrie Always clearly worked really hard on it. Yeah, the sword fighting is wonderful. I mean, it's supposed to feel like an Errol Flynn adventure. Certainly the Adventures of Robin Hood. Yeah, I've always loved those scenes, even as a kid.
Yeah,
they're great.
I thought it was great. All right, so he just Wesley just knocks him out, doesn't kill him because that would be bad, and he is on the trail, Buttercup's trail, and then we find out that Prince Humperdinck is also on the trail.
Yeah, this is Chris Sarandon, great actor. Because I'm a child of the 80s, I always think of him as the vampire from Fright Night, but he's done a lot of interesting work. I like this actor a lot. But this is, like everything else in this movie, I feel like people probably know him best for this film now, despite the fact that he's done a lot of stuff.
And the six-fingered man
is Christopher Guest. Yeah, of This is Spinal Tap, director of all these faux documentaries that came after. By the way, This is Spinal Tap was directed by Rob Reiner. That's the movie he did. It was 2 or 3 movies before this one. And that's the film that basically, I mean, there were other mock documentaries prior to Spinal Tap, but Spinal Tap is the one that basically inspired Guest and so many other filmmakers to do their mock documentaries. And of course, Guest does a faux documentary every couple of years. He's married to the wonderful Jamie Lee Curtis, and he's like, I mean, he and Harry Shearer and Michael McKean became the band Spinal Tap for real. So Christopher Guest is, I mean, the guy is literally a rock star. He's really cool for a guy who's like so droll and has such a weird sense of humor, and his stuff has always been very character driven. He's really freaking cool. I like him a lot.
Okay, so Wesley now has to fight the giant.
Yeah.
And I don't know, this scene is funny. They just kind of, he's like, no, we're going to fight each other, like man to man. And so somehow Wesley like strangles him and just enough to knock him out. And then he finally gets to Buttercup, who's with Vizzini.
Yeah.
And you know what's crazy? I didn't even realize that Vizzini's character is really only in like 15 minutes or something.
It's
of this
crazy.
movie.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like it's really a cameo, but it does. I always I think of him being in the entire movie. But
Yeah.
you're right. It's the first act, I guess, about that or so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's really not in it enough. But I mean, this scene between the two,
Yeah, because
it's my favorite scene.
Their
in the film.
battle of wits.
It's so funny.
It's so
That is
funny.
my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, where he puts the iocane powder in the wine, and then he has to guess which one it is.
It's great, and I love the way that Elwes is playing it too. I mean, Elwes is like Bugs Bunny in this. He's the smartest guy in the room, and you know he's like, or maybe not the smartest guy in the room. I guess a better way of putting it is he's never caught off guard. Put it that way. So I love that even in his quiet moments, it's like you can always catch the character thinking. For a character that there's really not much to this character other than the fact that it's like he's the hero of it. Elwes is always doing these really stylish and interesting things. He's playing off of the hero persona that you'd expect. But it's a really sly and funny performance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then Vizzini falls over dead from the iocane powder.
That's great.
And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, that's it. But the way I remembered the film, I did not remember him just like, that's it. I don't know. Because everybody quotes him the most, I think.
Well, the story that I told you the other day, like, and it drove me up the wall. There's a video store I used to go to in Colorado Springs, and it was a old school video store with actual like video cassettes as well as DVDs. And I remember one time I went in there, and there's a Nicholas Roeg movie I love called Insignificance, and it's about Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio and Einstein. I love that movie, and I went to purchase a copy of it, and I go to the counter. And again, folks, the movie is called Insignificance, right? So I hand the copy to the clerk. He looks at it and he goes, "Inconceivable!" And I go, No. It's Insignificance. It's really good. You should see it. And he goes, "Inconceivable!" I'm like, yeah, fine. Here's the $5. Please stop talking.
Stop talking.
Ugh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's not funny if it's just saying that one word.
Right. But I've encountered that a lot.
Yeah.
People tend to quote this movie all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so now Humperdinck is still on their trail, and he's trying to find them. But
By the way, was a pop singer. He might be still alive. Forgive me. My grandma, he's probably not alive because of this. Definitely dates it. But my grandma wished her one of her favorite pop singers of all time was Engelbert Humperdinck. So I wonder if this is a takeoff of that. I don't really know. But it was pretty weird as a young boy. Like, can you put on an Engelbert Humperdinck record for me? I'm like, yeah, sure, Grandma. To this day, I couldn't name a song that guy has sung, but he was like a big deal once. Engelbert Humperdinck, that was his name.
Wow.
So I wonder if that's takeoff of or tribute.
a tribute.
Yeah.
Well, who knows?
To anybody who remembers Engelbert Humperdinck. Yeah.
Send us your letters. Just
Please.
kidding.
Yes.
Okay, so Wesley takes Buttercup, and they're like fighting because she's just like, what are you doing? Like, who are you? Let me go. And he
Does not recognize him.
yeah, she doesn't recognize him.
She doesn't for a long time.
I don't know. It's silly, but she pushes him down the hill, and he says, "As you wish." We all remember that, and she's like, "Wesley!" And then she throws herself down the hill, and I said, "Let's look and see if we can see the stunt doubles." on the Blu-ray.
Yeah, this is before, like, because nowadays you have actors have their faces digitally put over the stunt doubles, which is totally cheating.
Yeah.
But this is that era where, I mean, especially with like action movies, if you pause it, like, oh man, that's like, not only is that not Jamie Lee Curtis, it's a dude with a mustache. I mean, this is that era of
This is
stunt
the same
people.
thing. So Wesley is totally an old dude.
Yeah.
And Buttercup, also a dude.
Also a dude with the blonde wig or just blonde hair. It's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. So this is the "death cannot stop true love" line.
Ah, yes.
When they finally like embrace and kiss, and she's
Yes, Wesley, death can stop true love. That's how it works, but whatever, fairy tale.
like, yeah. So now they know that Humperdinck is after them. They've seen the entourage, and so they're like, we're gonna have to go in the fire swamp. Okay, this fire swamp also freaked me out as a kid.
I feel like this is a therapy session, so tell me about the fire swamp.
Okay, well, first, as they're walking in, we hear that the Dread Pirate Robert story.
Yes.
That Wesley did get taken by him, but then he actually became him and tells Buttercup that, oh, it's just this whole grift that, you know, a Dread Pirate Roberts trains another one so that the old one can retire.
And he's able to use this black piece of cloth to maintain this illusion.
Yeah, which is hilarious.
It's very Lone Ranger.
Yeah. Okay. So in the fire swamp, we have quicksand. We have rodents of unusual size.
And you said this freaked you out.
And we have the fire. Okay. Yeah. The rodents of unusual size did freak me out because I you know what I think it is? I think it's when the camera is like right in the face of like the eel or the rat, and you can see their like mouth like, you know, and their teeth are like baring their teeth. It's just, yeah, it just scared me.
Well,
you gotta remember, I was probably, I was what,
seven? You were 7 years old when this movie came out.
I did not see it when it came out.
You were like 8 or 9.
Maybe
something like
even
that.
if I was 10, it still scared me.
All right. Well, this movie came out the year after Aliens and the same year as RoboCop, which has amazing visual effects. I've always found the effects in this movie to be really, really lame, but...
Well, yeah, because the Rodents of Unusual Size, or ROUSs, are totally guys in
suits. You could, yeah, it's pretty...
And in the credits, it even says, like, ROUS suit, like, stunt doubles.
I'm sure those guys go to conventions and they sign, like, pictures of them in those costumes.
Oh, they
I'm sure.
probably do.
This movie, you know, like, there was an interview with, I think it was Chris Sarandon, who said, I'm so proud to have been, I think it was Sarandon, he's like, I'm so proud to have been in the Wizard of Oz of the 80s. And I remember at the time thinking, no, but... Now, yeah. Like, if they have conventions where all the Munchkins sign photos, I'm sure anyone involved in this film is...
Like, the table with the ROUSs is over here.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, so now you said that, yes, the ROUS guys, obviously they're in suits. I thought that the quicksand was a great stunt. I mean...
it's all practical. I mean, there's no CGI here. I mean, CGI isn't. There is no CGI at this point.
Their practical effect for that was, I thought, was great.
It's fine. Yeah.
I mean,
it's nothing like Indiana Jones, but yeah, sure.
Oh my gosh! But also, Buttercup, totally useless. She can't defend herself or anything.
She's the damsel in distress. It's the male female roles here are very traditional in terms of, you know, Arthurian legend and all that. It's you know, this isn't even as forward thinking or progressive as like Princess Leia. This is very much Guinevere. You know, I've never thought of Guinevere as a really strong character, frankly. I think the way she's been portrayed in the last couple of years, and frankly, the last Robin Hood, the way they had made Marion actually be active participant in the battles, like that's a new thing. Because as a kid, I've always thought of Robin Hood having to save Marion. Oh, Robin, you're so brave! Like that's, it's a very traditional.
So maybe this is a sign of how we've evolved a little bit by watching some of these old movies and being like, wow, that chick, come on, do something.
Well, plus this is like, I mean, to say the least, this. You know, I mean, when does this movie even take place? I mean, it's a faraway land, but I mean, if we're talking about Arthurian times, then we're talking about think about how hard it is to be a woman, to put it mildly, and how strong, and I'm sure, like in their own way, finding their inner strength and being empowered in this atmosphere where it's predominantly men.
Yes, I think she's strong in other ways, but
for the most part, no.
Like, okay, for example, he's being attacked by the rodent of unusual size, and she just stands there. She could have picked up his sword and helped him,
right? But
she did nothing.
Yes.
So, just one example. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I've never... I mean, it's funny because, like, this role and Forrest Gump are what Robin Wright is best known for, and it's ridiculous because... Say whatever you want about Janae, but, like...
Janae.
I mean, Robin Wright, you know, and again, like, lovely. She was on a soap opera called Santa Barbara, and this was like her first like big movie, and of all things, it becomes this classic. But I mean, she's very green in the movie in terms of being an actress. It's all about presence. She and Carrie always look great together. But yeah, I mean, like, there's no character.
I know,
and it's crazy because she's surrounded by these amazing actors who all like pop every time they have their scenes. But yeah, like, you know, it's not entirely your fault, but I do feel like she kind of fades into the background of a lot of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's more
so
of a plot device.
that's true. Okay, so they come out of the fire swamp and there's Humperdinck and his people. And Buttercup has the bright idea of like, don't kill him, just send him back to his ship. Like, I'll marry you. You know, she just wants to save his life. So he's like, yeah, sure, I'll send him back to his ship. And sends him instead to the pit of despair, another nightmarish place for me.
Do you need to lie down? Tell me about the pit of despair and why it troubled you so.
It's terrifying.
Is it?
Yes.
It's a set. I mean, it looks like the dungeon set from the History of the World Part 1.
Well, no, because...
Is it Mel Smith as the Inquisitor? Is that why it bothers you so much? The white hair?
The albino?
Yeah.
That's
Is
what,
he
yeah,
albino?
that's what he called it. That in the credits, that's his name, the albino.
That's oh wow, yeah, this very dated movie.
No, he didn't really scare me so much, but the fact that they have
He's got that great bit where you think he has this menacing voice and he's just
oh yeah,
yeah. I like that bit a lot.
Yeah, but no, he's tied up, and then when they
torture him.
Six-fingered man comes
Yeah.
and says that it takes 1 year of his life, and he's like, for posterity, tell me how you feel. And Wesley just starts like whimpering.
Yeah.
Okay. That was, I mean, for a comedy, I just thought that was a little nuts. For seeing that as a kid.
Torture. Yeah, it's fun. Torture scenes in children's films are a bit much. I have a similar story. Right, in the Muppet movie. Do you remember this? Kermit. Do you remember this? Kermit is captured by Mel Brooks.
Muppet movie.
Do you remember? He's captured by Mel Brooks, and he's like shackled to the chair, and he has this weird little thing put on his head. And Mel Brooks is like, I guess, like playing like a quasi Nazi doctor, and he's like, "Well, turns the brains into guacamole," and like. Like Kermit's like stuck in this chair, and like Miss Piggy's like, "Oh, Kermit!" And Kermit's like, "Oh, Miss Piggy, I don't know." I'll be honest, I was very distressed by that. I'd never seen a torture scene before, let alone towards a Muppet. And for years, I thought Mel Brooks is that awful man from the Muppet movie. It wasn't until years later I'm like, oh, he's kind of hilarious and a genius. But for years, I'm like, he's that mean guy who almost killed Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, exactly.
So there, yeah, okay, yes. Torture scenes in children's films are weird.
Yes, okay, and just the whole like apparatus. I mean, with like the water and just the whole thing.
Do you know how it works? I was trying to figure that out even watching it.
No,
it doesn't make a lick of sense.
No.
So it's water operated. It made it look like it's just like a suction cup. It's
like two suction cups, one on each side of his head.
Yeah, it looks like it just gives you a migraine, if that's possible. And there's no aspirin back then, so I get it.
Yeah, no, I have no idea. I don't know if it's sucking or if it's like pushing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Like, is there any electrical currents?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I don't know how it works, but obviously seeing it now.
How does it take away? Like, I mean, again, like it's a fascinating idea, but how does it take a year of your life away?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, as a kid, these concepts are very scary.
It's very whimsical in its concept, but to actually look at it, like, how does this thing
as
work?
An adult, you're like, okay, I don't know what is this machine even doing.
Yeah, but it's enough to make Wesley whimper, and I agree. It's a hurtful thing because we love this character, and
the whimper.
It's hard to watch him.
It was the whimper thing. Like if he had been like, haha, that didn't affect me at all, then maybe. You know. Yeah,
it's interesting because it's a comedy, but Christopher Guest is playing him as an awful villain. It's cool because like he's totally committed to it. He's not. There's a lot of winking at the audience in this movie, and Christopher Guest is not having any of that.
Yeah. All right. So Buttercup has a nightmare, and she basically tells Prince Humperdinck like, "I am not going to marry you. Like I will." Either be with Wesley or I'm going to kill myself. There's a lot of talk of suicide with her. Mm-hmm. And so Humperdinck says, with his fingers crossed, I'm not really going to do it. I'm going to send word to the pirate Roberts. And he says, do I have this right? Okay, so yes, he is going to like send his 4 fastest ships. And this is what he's telling her. And they're going to send word and then, okay, if he comes, then you can marry him or leave with him. Otherwise, you're going to marry me. Okay. So then she's like, fine, but then he tells his people or whatever, that he actually planned her kidnapping, the first kidnapping. I didn't know this until we watched it again, that he planned the kidnapping with Vizzini, and because he is trying to start a war. And, you know, when Vizzini was talking about starting a war, that was really Humperdinck's idea. So now he's saying, all right, that's a failed kidnapping attempt. So he's going to murder her on their wedding night. That's his new idea. But he's going to blame it on this other, like, kingdom, and that will start the war.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you know that?
No. Honestly, I've never cared about the plot of this movie.
I know.
Because it's like, okay, even if I don't get it, they're going to cut back to Peter Falk and Fred Savage, and they'll kind of explain to me what's going on. But no, I mean, you know, I got to hand it to William Goldman. He really thought it through. It made it, I don't know. I mean, this is like talking about the trade war stuff from Star Wars. Like, is it really? I don't know. But no, I mean, you're right. It is intriguing. It's definitely more complicated than it seems.
Yeah. Well, it is more complicated than it seems, because you're like, oh, the kidnapping in the beginning was like Humperdinck's plan, but that fell through. And so him like trying to find her, was that just like, I don't know.
Yeah, not to be dismissive, because I really do appreciate your synopsis. I really do. It's good to hear what the story is, but I've never cared about it. Like for me, it's this movie is like a series of character vignettes. You know, these characters show up, they shine, and then they're gone. That's always been my take of this movie. I mean, it's so character driven. I've never really thought about the story of this movie, especially because it's a story within a story. So really, it's not even about what we're watching. It's about an old man telling his son a story.
Grandson,
excuse me.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll just like not go through the plot.
No,
anymore.
please. No. More plot.
Okay, so Inigo and Fezzik are reunited. Mm-hmm. Okay. And Humperdinck is so ticked at Buttercup that he goes down to the pit of despair himself and turns the machine on to 50 years. And the six-fingered man is just like, oh my gosh, and kills Wesley. Just kills him. All right. So that's when so Inigo hears him screaming, and he's like, that's Wesley. That's only a man like in deep pain, because he doesn't have his true love would yell like that.
Yes.
Okay. Somehow they find him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. He prays to like his dead dad.
To hear you describe it is such a weird film. But yes, continue.
Yeah. So they rescue Wesley's body from the pit of despair, and that's when they take him to Miracle Max, because they're
Miracle Max. Here we go.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because the reason Inigo is even doing this is because it's very selfish. He just wants to get his revenge, you know, on the six-fingered man.
Yeah.
But he knows that the castle's being guarded by like 30 men. And he's like, the only person smart enough to figure this out, since Vizzini is dead, is Wesley. So he's like the smartest man in the kingdom.
He is.
Yeah. All right. So Miracle Max, another famous scene.
Yeah, it's Billy Crystal, and I love him in this. He did this the same year as Throw Mama from the Train, which is one of my favorite movies, and I love Crystal in that. Yeah, he's only in this for a few minutes, and it's him and Carol Kane. It's a total twofer. They're just like, for a couple minutes, they just walk away with the whole movie. I mean, I love it so much. Carol Kane, she's famous for being in Taxi, but I feel like most people know her as the psychotic fairy who beats the crap out of Bill Murray and Scrooged. Do you remember that? That's her under all that makeup. And that was the following year. I mean, Carol Kane has done so much stuff. I mean, her filmography is insane, all the stuff that she's done, TV, movies. But yeah, that's honestly what I think of. I think of her in this, and I think of her in Scrooged.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but originally, like, Miracle Max does not want to help. Mm-hmm. And then finally, she's like, come on. But then he wants to help because they're going to get back at Humperdinck. So everybody wants revenge in this film. And I don't know, he gives them like a chocolate nut. A chocolate covered nut.
To hear you describe it, it's like, how much dubage was William Goldman smoking when he came up with this crazy plot?
I know. Yeah. Okay, so Inigo and Fezzik take Wesley to the castle that's being guarded, and then that's where they stuff this nut down his throat.
Yes.
And then he actually wakes up, and he can't move his arms or legs, but he can talk. It's just obviously a fairy tale. Okay. So then we have the wedding ceremony and the castle break-in kind of happening, simultaneously. And this wedding ceremony with this priest, marriage.
Yeah, this is Peter Cook.
Love, true love.
I've been to a wedding where they actually had the guy marrying the couple recite that line.
Did he do the whole thing?
The whole thing.
A dream within a dream?
Yes.
Really?
What brings us together. Yeah, the whole freaking thing. Yeah.
Don't do this, people. Don't do it.
No, it was a Princess Bride themed wedding.
The whole wedding was the theme?
Well, like they didn't go as far as like having, like the groomsmen dressed like Fezzik and Wesley, but no, I mean it was a Princess Bride themed wedding.
Did they have to go through like different
Here's the thing, and we'll get into this more. I don't care about the Princess Bride as much as other people, so I can't tell you to what degree this wedding had fidelity to the Princess Bride, but I was told beforehand it was a Princess Bride themed wedding.
Who did you dress up like to go?
I dressed in green. I didn't dress up like
in green.
Do you have any Fezzik costumes? No, I dressed up in green. I had a green like buttoned up shirt.
Why'd you dress in green?
Because I think it takes place in the woods. It's the Princess Bride. It's a fairy tale. I thought I'll look kind of like Peter Pan if I have like a little hat with a little feather in. I'll look like Peter Pan. So yeah.
Okay, that's probably the funniest thing.
I don't even think they're even married anymore. Now that I think about it.
Oh, that's sad. It wasn't true love.
It wasn't true love. I guess death cannot stop true love. Sorry, Wesley, you're wrong about that.
Okay, so then the castle break-in where they light Andre the Giant like on fire and everyone runs away. That's pretty great, actually. So they go in and all right, then there's just like chase scenes and
a lot of
shenanigans.
Yes.
And then finally Inigo gets to duel. He doesn't really get to duel him. Well, he kind of does. He does.
Yeah.
But he gets wounded first, and then
mortally wounded. It seems like
it does seem
he's
mortal.
a goner. Yeah.
And then he finds the strength to just take him out. Yeah, and he keeps saying the line, and Christopher Guest is like, "Stop saying that," which is kind of probably how we feel when people keep repeating that line over and over.
I hear it all the time. I hear most lines from this movie a lot.
Okay, so I do like the line where so Buttercup thinks she's married to Humperdinck, and they like take her they're like put her in the honeymoon suite just to like get rid of her because the castle's been breached, and she takes a knife and she's gonna like kill herself, and Wesley's on the bed and he's like, "There's a shortage of perfect breasts in this world, and it would be a shame for you to ruin yours." Oh my gosh. And she's like, "Wesley!" Like, what a ridiculous
That line really made me cringe as a kid. I remember watching it with my mom, like, oh, did he have to say that?
Yeah, as a kid, that's pretty embarrassing.
Movies I'm like, oh, I don't want to watch this with my mom anymore.
Yeah. It's kind of, now it's funny. So then, the Humperdinck comes in and he gets tied up, but you don't know if Wesley can even walk, and somehow he managed to.
Yeah, we were saying there's a nice bit of physical work by Elwes to convey like his brain and his mouth are working. That's really it, and and initially that's all he has to defend him off and interrupt him with his words. Yeah.
So they tie him up and jump out the window so the giant can catch them and ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
And then there's the kiss, and that's it.
Yep, that's it. Although, the important part is it ends with grandson and grandfather. Mm-hmm. And, before he leaves, I think this is a moment that chokes people up a lot. You know, the grandson says, you know, you can come back and read that again tomorrow. And he says, as you wish.
Yeah.
He says, as you wish. That's important. And he walks away, and that's how the film basically ends.
Yeah.
Yeah. It always felt like a really abrupt ending to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It feels like there's a scene or two missing. And I'll tell you later, I'll tell you the ending that I would prefer that this movie does not have.
Okay.
Or should I do that now?
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you mine?
Yeah, you tell me yours.
Okay. So
this is the way you wish it ended.
yeah, but in the book, like it's fine with the grandson and the grandfather to have their. I'm okay with that part.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Got
talking
it.
about like the story. So I think that Wesley should just kill Prince Humperdinck or King Humperdinck. He's the prince.
I think he's the prince.
Maybe that's why she's the princess bride then. Oh man.
Oh, that's why.
It took me this whole
Did it really take us 35 years to figure this out?
Yeah.
He's Prince Humperdinck.
Okay. So she's becoming the princess then? So who's the king? Why isn't he the king? Oh, because his dad's still alive. That's right. Okay. We do meet his elderly dad at the very end who can't hear. He can't hear anything. Because remember, Buttercup is like, I'm going to go kill myself now.
Oh, right.
And
yeah.
he's just like, she kissed me. Okay. Well, we know that the king is not going to be alive for much longer. So I think Wesley should off Prince Humperdinck and they should become the king and queen because they can't. Who's going to rule the kingdom once the dad dies? You know? Then they would have like good rulers and they wouldn't be subjected to like these terrible people anymore.
What about the rodents of unusual size? What happens to them? You should probably face your fears now in talking about this.
The rodents of unusual size?
Do they get exterminated or do they live in harmony within the woods? Or is the woods infested with these things?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they should like set fire to the fire swamp.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You want to destroy a forest?
It's a fire swamp.
Yeah, but it's
with trees.
It's ecological lands. You're talking about decimating. What about the wildlife in there? What about the rodents of unusual size?
Yeah, they need to be gone. They need to.
You want to exterminate a
Yeah.
species?
Yeah. Wow. They should be on the endangered species list.
Oh man.
I know. What about the shrieking eels, though?
Yeah, what about those? I mean, do you want those eliminated too, or
I think there should be like.
do they make purses out of them? What happens to those eels?
They start fishing them like really aggressively, and they also end up on the endangered species list.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
You're doing like so much ecological damage. What's it called? Eldon? What's the name of this world?
Oh, their kingdom?
Yeah, what's the name of the world that this takes place in?
Oh.
I will find out.
I'm not sure.
I will find out. Florin! Florin's the kingdom of Florin!
Yeah.
We just watched this too. Florin.
I know. That's because, like you said, the plot points are neither here nor there.
I've never, I mean, if, gun to my head, what's the plot of The Princess Bride? Grandfather reads a story to his grandson. That's honestly what I tell people. I've never known the plot to this movie. It's, it's celebrities in like Renaissance fair attire. They show up and then they're gone for the rest of the movie. That's always been my takeaway of this film. It's character driven. The characters in this movie, they never stop shutting up. This is such a dialogue and character driven film. I've never thought about the plot to this movie.
Well, what if he tortures Humperdinck in the pit of despair and then throws him to the Shrieking Eels?
That's your ending?
Yeah.
That's horrifying. And you know me, I love a dark, sad ending, but no, I would never do that.
Okay.
No, do you want to hear my...
Yes, I want to hear your ending.
My ending to The Princess Bride is this. I think that the young grandson lives in a high-rise apartment. And I think, the scene ends where he looks at his grandson and says, "As you wish," and leaves. And the camera stays with Peter Falk. Peter Falk is the grandfather. And he goes into an elevator, and it's a long ride down. It's like one of those penthouse apartments in New York. And he's with this woman in the elevator, this brunette, and she sneezes. And he's like, "Oh, here, take my hanky." And she's like, "Oh, thank you so much." And he hangs the handkerchief, and she, into the handkerchief, and he goes, "I'm gonna need that back when you're done." She's like, "Oh, thank you. Who said chivalry is dead?" Like, not me. And she looks at the hanky and she goes, "This is odd." He's like, "Yeah, I've had that long time." He looks, and we look at it, and we see that it's the Black Mask. He's Wesley.
Oh.
So true love truly never dies.
So he was one of the Dread Pirate Roberts. Like it was passed down to him.
No, it's him. He's true love never dies, and this is
he is Wesley.
He's literally Wesley.
Okay, so he lived this fairy tale?
It doesn't make a lot of sense, but nothing in The Princess Bride does. But I would go as far as to say, I mean, because like one of the lines that never made any sense to me, because like at the very beginning, he shows up to the grandson. He's like, "This is a story I read to your grandma." Like they've been sharing this story for such a long time. I'm thinking, why? Like, wait, how old is this guy? They were reading this story to each other during the Depression. They're like in this cold apartment where it's like a coal-lit stove, and it's like, "We got nothing. Hey, let's read The Princess Bride." Like, what? No. So I thought maybe because there's a quality of magic to this character. There's something so. What if he's Wesley? What if it's a Highlander situation where he just?
Ooh, I like that.
Oh,
idea.
I know you like. Oh yeah, you like that a lot. Yeah. So he's like Adrian Paul in Highlander the series. Because if I said Christopher Lambert, you'd be like, boo. Yeah. He's like, he's ageless. He's timeless. And maybe Buttercup is at home waiting for him.
Aww.
Yeah. Well, at the old folk home. Oh, that's Wesley and Buttercup. They're a weird couple.
They're really strange.
They just sit in a wheelchair and they just look at each other all day and they say, "As you wish." We think it's dementia. They're really weird. Well, and they only like to eat rodents. It's so weird. And they ask us if we have any rodents of unusual size. What does that even mean? They're the weirdest people here, but they're kind of cute.
All the nurses just gossip about them all day.
No, but they're like, but Wesley's kind of cute.
Oh my gosh.
He's like 87, but we love him.
No, but when he does say "as you wish," part of me was like, "Oh, that would be nice if he was Wesley." Yeah, I did think of that.
That's my interpretation. I think he's Wesley. A couple of years ago, I taught a young adult novel class with my students, and we covered the book and the movie, The Neverending Story. Mm-hmm. And in the movie, the main character, the boy Bastian, goes to this bookstore, meets this really wacky and very odd bookstore owner who gives him the book. And as Wesley runs off, the bookstore owner is
Bastian.
Bastian, thank you. Bastian is kind of like, he runs off with the book, and the bookstore owner is kind of like smiling. And my students are like, why does he do that? I don't even understand that. So I gave him this theory, which they loved. I said, like, well, but he is Bastian. Yeah, he was able, Bastian's able to, go in and out of the world of the book. It's timeless. And he probably became an old man. And he, used the book to go back to 1984 and have this bookstore because he knew his younger self would go in, and he gave the book to the boy. So my interpretation is that old man is actually Bastian. My students loved it. They totally ate it up. And I have no idea if that's true. But I do like the cyclical nature of it, because the idea here, of course, the most important thing, more than any of that Wesley Buttercup crap, is that this grandfather was going to read this story to his grandson again. That's special. That they have this connecting point, because that's the important part of stories. It's shared, it's passed down, there's a legacy to it. I think that's what's really special about this movie. Not all that fairy tale crap. It's grandson and grandfather.
Aww. Oh, now you're making me like... I mean, I already like this movie, but now you make me like the grandson part even more. Okay, are you going to talk about the trailer from this movie?
Yeah, it's dreadful. My college roommate Jeremy, I mean, one of the dozens of people in my life who I've known for a long time and I love, who are super fans of this. When this movie first came on DVD, Jeremy bought it. Jeremy actually bought me my first DVD, actually. I think it was Buckaroo Banzai. Anyway, Jeremy invited me to his place. He's like, "You got to see this." And so I think we watched the whole thing. I'm like, "Yeah, I've seen The Princess Bride." And when it was over, he's like, "You got to see this trailer. This is amazing." So this is before YouTube. And I had never seen the trailer to The Princess Bride. And it is dreadful. It's set to like this Muzak saxophone soundtrack.
What is it?
It was the book my father used to read to me when I was sick, and I used to read it to your father. And today, I'm going to read it to you.
It was a time when life didn't seem so complicated.
Marriage is what brings us together today.
What?
What?
I'm killing myself once we reach the honeymoon suite.
Wouldn't that be nice?
A courtly age of gentle conversation.
I will always come for you.
But how can you be sure?
This is true love.
Oh, no. Is this a kissing book?
No. Actually, there was a lot of treachery, peril, and revenge.
Prepare to die.
Never go in against a Sicilian when death is on the line.
Yeah, it's a terrible trailer. It's embarrassing to listen to. It doesn't represent the film. As you indicated, like, it spoils the heck out of it. It is dreadful. It just shows that the studio did not know what they had. They didn't know how to promote it. And of course, the funny thing about this movie, it made $30 million, which is respectable, but it was one of these things where it wasn't a flop, but it wasn't a hit. It kind of fell in the cracks. So, I mean, this film is a genuine cult film. This is one of those movies like It's a Wonderful Life, where people are always amazed, like, really, it flopped? Well, yeah, it was not successful. The love for this movie came afterwards. People discovered it on video cassette, basic cable. They grew up with it, but I mean, I've never in my life met someone who saw this in the theater. I've never met anybody who's seen it in the theater. I'd be interested to talk to somebody if they enjoyed it or they remember it. And I guess to give the studio a little credit, like, how to even promote a film like this, it was unusual, to say the least.
A love story? I don't know.
Yeah, but it's a comedy about fairy tales. And this is also one of the reasons why, to just get to it, that I'm not the biggest fan of this film. This is the decade of, like, some of my favorite fantasy films. Like, this is the decade of Ridley Scott's Legend and Ron Howard's Willow and Matthew Robbins' Dragon Slayer. Like, I love those movies. They're gritty, they're edgy. And then you have this movie. I mean, it's cutesy. The special effects are terrible. It's like,
it gave me nightmares. But
it gave you
okay.
Okay. Well, I love that you think it's like this gritty, edgy, like.
Well, 10-year-olds do think that.
Fair enough. I mean, and the thing is, like, I became really aware of Rob Reiner around this time because the year before this movie came out, in '86, he did the film Stand By Me, which is based on Stephen King's The Body. And Stand By Me, I think, is one of the great films about boys. Like, I'd say it's up there with, like, The 400 Blows. One of the best movies ever made about being a young man and figuring out how hard and awful the world is. I love that film. So he does that in '86. This comes out in '87. And I saw The Princess Bride, not in the theater. I saw it on video cassette. I'm like, that's funny. It's a good movie. But then, like, he followed up Princess Bride with When Harry Met Sally, Misery, and A Few Good Men. So those movies are awesome, particularly Misery. So for me, The Princess Bride was always like, it was never like a priority for me. It was never a movie I was really all that crazy about. I like it. I do. I think it's a good movie, but I do think it's hideously overrated. And my gosh, when I went to college, everybody is quoting this movie insanely. And, and I'm a theater brat, so inevitably I'm around thespians who are just constantly quoting The Princess Bride. The three movies that college ruined for me are Grease, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and The Princess Bride, because people would quote them all the time, and it just drove me insane.
Goonies for me. I don't know why, but every time there was, like, movie night at my apartment, it was always the Goonies. I'm like, I can't keep watching this. So, all right.
Remember you told me that. Yeah, you did tell me that. And I gotta say, like, another thing about this movie that's really bizarre, because, like, it didn't set the box office on fire, but, like, for a movie that has, really interesting costumes, it's got a few really great supporting performances, the makeup is incredible, it was only up for one Academy Award, and that's Best Song. One of the worst songs of the 1980s.
This song is...
It's a story of my storybook love. Actually, I wrote down some of the lyrics. Here we go. So it's, our love is like a storybook story. It's as real as the feelings we feel. Oh my gosh.
And the guy who's singing it sounds exactly like that.
And look, I'm sorry if you love that song. If you played that song during your wedding, great. Okay, I apologize. I'm not trying to be mean, but the song is lousy. Okay,
It's lousy.
and it's weird to me that that was the thing attached to this movie that got awards consideration because it's neither here to. I mean, what about William Goldman's screenplay? I mean, he based the screenplay based on his book, and I mean, people. I mean, it's one of the most quoted screenplays ever.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
nothing.
Yeah. With the end credits came on, I just said, "What in the world is this? This is awful."
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Mark Knopfler score. I don't know. I think it's a little too self-consciously cheesy, but yeah, the song at the end of it.
No.
Maybe an instrumental version.
Without any singing,
Please? Yeah.
no lyrics.
Yeah, the karaoke version.
Well, how many stars do you give this?
Oh gosh, I think three. I'll say three.
Okay.
3.
Yeah, I give it 3.5.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I really like it. Even though watching it with more of a critical eye, I was like, "Oh, that's the plot. Oh, okay. I didn't understand what's going on with Prince Humperdinck. He was scheming the whole time, and all these years I had no idea. But it didn't matter, like you said. Whatever."
This is the thing. Like Rob Reiner, he has a sitcom background. He was in All in the Family, and he is funny, and he's made funny movies. But this film, it is funny. It really is, and at times it's so funny. But it's also really self-satisfied. It's overly self-conscious. It's a movie that knows how hip it is.
Yeah.
And that drives me crazy because, it's one thing for this movie to be the coolest cat in the room. It's another thing to know how cool it is. Like, the actors are all but winking at the camera or, nudging you in the ribs. I don't know. It's... I told you this, and I know you and I really disagreed about this. I think the better version of this kind of movie is Enchanted. I like Enchanted a lot more. I think, for one thing, the equivalent of The Princess Bride in that case has a much better character. And I love Amy Adams in that movie. But it's a similar idea, although it's more about the juxtaposition of contemporary life and the fairy tale world. And you don't really spend enough time in that fairy tale world. But I think it plays a lot better with exploring that idea of thinking about those characters in contemporary terms. Taking the traditional prince, princess, villain roles and seeing how, because, I mean, The Princess Bride, it's a lot of real 80s kind of humor. It's very, very hip and self-aware and has a real gentleness to it in addition to all the things that gave you nightmares and traumatized you.
Yes, PTSD. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big time.
All right.
So yeah, it's good. I'm sorry. I know the fans listen like, it's better than that. It's better than that. Okay, I know.
Send your hate mail to...
Sorry, I can't love everything, okay? I don't love this movie, but it's good. It's good. And you, on the other hand, are a super fan.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm a super fan.
Do you regret that on our wedding day we didn't do a Princess Bride themed?
No. I do.
We could have had the dude marry us. He could have done the whole marriage will bring us together.
No, that's so embarrassing.
I could have had my groomsmen, Shay and Marty and Mike and your brother. They could have been like Fezzik, and I could have had them all dressed up.
No, because then you would have come dressed like Peter Pan for some reason.
Oh yeah, I definitely would have done that.
And that would have made
still rocking that green outfit.
sense.
Still sitting in my closet.
It would have made no sense. All right, well, if you have any last minute thoughts, now's the time.
This is a story about a storybook love.
No. Don't.
Here's a story. It fits like a glove.
Now you're just making up lyrics.
I am, but hey, it's as awful as the actual song. So there you go.
All right. Well, that concludes our discussion of
play us out.
A Princess Bride.
Down in Florida, when things went bad, saw the rats of unusual size.
No.